down! Huh? What is going on? Wake up, mate! The war has begun! Quick, man the cannons and give them hell! Sailors sprinting through the hallway, chanting like it's a football match. War? Oh God! Okay, just give me a second. Just gotta change into my uniform and... Wait, what? Oh, hey, Charles. Wait, why aren't you guys manning the cannons? The cannons? What do you... Ooh, you mean the war? Already finished it, matey. It's over? Yeah, mate. Hey, you joining this round or what? This bloke is about to wager his soul. Ah, bollocks! A deal's a deal, sir. No, wait. Can I go to bed again? Up in a Historically, Facts, Part 5. God bless the king, queen, whoever's turn it is. Welcome to the late 19th century, and welcome to Great Britain. The land of the Industrial Revolution, the land of economic opportunity, and the land of extremely overcrowded cities. With rats. Many, many rats. Genuinely an unreasonable number of rats, but that's a different video. You know what else Britain has many of? Colonies. How many? Very many. Approximately 22% of all of Earth's land area, which means at some point a British guy looked at a map of the entire planet and went, yeah, I could see myself owning most of that. It's the biggest empire the world has ever seen, and frankly, it's not particularly close. And within that humongous rat-adjacent empire is a small island called Zanzibar. Just off the coast of Tanzania, Zanzibar was the trade center of the Indian Ocean, connecting African, Indian, and Asian traders all in one spot. Extremely convenient location, extremely valuable real estate, and extremely on Britain's radar the moment somebody in London realized there was money nearby they didn't personally control yet. This made the island crucial for the British colonists, as it strengthened their position in the African trading world. But, and stick with me here, because this is the part that actually matters, that wasn't the sole reason the British wanted the island. There was also slavery. No. The British didn't want to establish it. They wanted to abolish it. Around the year 1800, the British had, and I cannot stress this enough, a genuine change of heart, and decided that maybe tearing families apart and shipping them across the world to work until they die of exhaustion wasn't exactly the pinnacle of humanitarian behavior. Took them a suspiciously long time to arrive at that conclusion, but hey, better late than never, I suppose. So, after a good long talk with abolitionists like Thomas Clarkson, Granville Sharp, and William Wilberforce, the British Empire decided that yes, actually, slaves are indeed also human. Groundbreaking stuff. And passed a law making it illegal to have slaves anywhere in the British Empire. This simultaneously lit a new fire in the hearts of the British public, who collectively went, we shall free the world of slavery and have every man, and later on maybe also women, made equal. Big energy. Very noble. We'll see how consistently that energy gets applied. This brings us back to Zanzibar. Zanzibar turns out, just because the British quit slavery doesn't mean the local sultan and the many traders settled in Zanzibar did. And that was a problem for the British, because slavery is, again, very inhuman, and more importantly, according to their own freshly signed law, not allowed. Now, the easy way to deal with this problem is to immediately force every trader and wealthy person on the island to give up their main source of income overnight, so the island stops being embarrassingly illegal by British standards. The slight downside of that approach is rebellion, guerrilla warfare, and a whole lot of dead colonists. RIP. And we wouldn't want to somehow end up in a war, would we? Or not? This brings us to the second, significantly less rebellious option. Admiral Harry Rawson. Admiral Rawson was the chief of command at the Cape of Good Hope station in southern Africa, which meant he was the head of the British fleet responsible for the waters around the African countries. What if, instead of making slave trading illegal on land and dealing with the guerrilla warfare-shaped consequences, we just send multiple ships patrolling the seas around East Africa to intercept any incoming slave ships, effectively causing slave trading to slowly choke out and die without the British coming across as, you know, the actual evil colonizers currently occupying their island. Sounds like a genuinely smart plan, honestly. But won't the local sultan oppose this? He would, if he could. Monopoly visits. When Britain acquired Zanzibar, it's not like they strolled into the palace of the sultan and politely asked, "Hey man, we want to set up a colony here so we can get considerably richer. Do you consent to this extremely one-sided arrangement?" No, it went more like this. "Hey Germany, ach, scheiße. Oh, Great Britain, I heard you're also trying to set up colonies in Africa. Yes, my dear friend, tell you what, if you take this part of East Africa, I'll take this, and this, and this, and also this." German thinking noises. "If you refuse, I will use my vastly superior naval force to make your life a living hell." War flashbacks. "Not again. Hilf mir. I hate this job. When will it end? I hope you fall one day. You know what? You make an outstanding argument. Deal. Revenge is coming, eventually. Spoiler, it takes a while. Oh, hello, Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini. I own this island now. Any objections? You sure? Okay, nice. But wait a minute. If the British seized ownership of the island, why is the Sultan still just sitting there? To once again avoid unnecessary warfare, which we certainly wouldn't want, the British kept the Sultan technically in place to create the illusion that the Zanzibaris were still governed by their good old slave-loving Sultan of tradition. In reality, he was functionally a puppet, string operated by the British to keep the population calm and cooperative. As long as the local Sultan listened to what London wanted, nothing bad would happen. And he's dead. How did he die? Suddenly, Akka poisoned by his cousin Khalid bin Bargash. Gosh, poisoned by a family relative? Truly, we have never seen that before, anywhere, in the entire history of royal succession. Shocking stuff. All right, so the Sultan is dead. We need a new puppet, which means, more urgently for the British, they've now lost their existing one. Very upsetting. Not war-triggering upsetting, yet. But still pretty bad from a colonial management spreadsheet perspective. Time to get a new sultan elected. Here are our two candidates. We have Hamud bin Mohammed, a pro-British anti-slavery candidate, extremely convenient timing, no notes. Or Khalid bin Bargash, the same guy who allegedly just poisoned the previous sultan, and shockingly, doesn't have particularly warm feelings toward the British. Why did he hate the British so much, you ask? Well, when his father, Ali bin Said, the sultan before the poisoned one, also died. Because at this point, sultans in Zanzibar have roughly the life expectancy of a mildly haunted light bulb. The British, just like now, had the exact same two choices. A pro-British, anti-slavery candidate, or Prince Khalid bin Bargash, who, fun detail, owned slaves himself. Khalid was the only son of the late Sultan, which made him a prince, and in his own personal and very firm opinion, the rightful successor to the throne. The British did not agree and favored Hamad bin Thuwaini instead. Khalid, understandably, did not love that. In response to the British quietly taking away what he considered his birthright, he stormed the palace and barricaded himself inside until the British handed him the throne. Bold strategy. Luckily, the British managed to smooth talk their way into Khalid giving up the throne peacefully that first time, so no unnecessary blood was shed. Great outcome. Everyone learns their lesson. The end. Except it isn't the end, because now it's happening again. And Khalid was absolutely not about to let his claim to the throne get quietly stolen from under him for a second time. So, upon hearing the British favored Hamud bin Mohammed over him yet again, he did the exact same move, except this time with over 3,000 men and women behind him, and stormed and barricaded the palace once more. The British initially tried the same sweet-talking approach that worked last time, but Khalid understandably had had enough of being sweet-talked out of his own inheritance, and flat-out ignored them. This was extremely problematic for the colonizers, since they very much needed a sultan in power who was going to play along with British interests, not one currently occupying the palace with 3,000 armed supporters. After asking Khalid to leave the palace one more time, presumably now with a small bouquet of flowers just to really soften the request, the British turned back to Admiral Harry Rawson. Daddy enters the scene. So, yes, this bloke in the palace is not getting out. You think you could somehow convince him to leave? Yeah, no worries, mate. I got you. I'll be right there first thing in the morning. And, for no reason whatsoever, please go ahead and evacuate all British citizens and merchants from the island, okay? See you tomorrow. The following morning, 8 a.m. Oi, mate, my name is Harry, and those are my 5 ships. We give you one final hour to leave, or we'll do it the good old-fashioned way. All right, to which Khalid responded, and I quote, "We have no intention of leaving, and we do not believe you would open fire on us." Oh, I'm not entirely sure you should be calling that particular bluff, mate. One final hour. Don't be a hero. So back to his ships Harry went, waiting patiently for Khalid and his 3,000 supporters to peacefully clear out of the palace. But as the clock crept closer to 9 a.m., there were no signs whatsoever of surrendering. Instead, the British noticed the Zanzibari rebels manning the one singular onshore battery they had, and a Zanzibari warship began quietly positioning itself directly within the formation of the 5 British ships. Very questionable behavior. I genuinely wonder why they might be doing that. Oh hey, would you look at the time? It's time for war! 9:02 a.m. The 3 British gunboats, Raccoon, Thrush, and Sparrow, simultaneously open fire on the palace. Thrush's very first shot immediately destroys the only manned shore battery on the entire island, which is, frankly, an aggressively efficient start to a war. Even though the 3,000 supporters had heavily fortified themselves inside the palace, the high explosive shells obliterate the barricades and set off massive fires throughout the building, trapping thousands of people inside toxic smoke within minutes. At 9:05 a.m., 3 whole minutes after the shelling begins, the single Zanzibari warship opens fire on the large British cruiser Admiral Rawson himself is standing on. However, due to painfully outdated weaponry and, let's be honest, fairly questionable battle strategy, they don't even manage to put a dent in the hull. In response, the St. George fires back and sinks the ship in roughly 4 shots. For some reason, a couple minutes after that, 2 small steam launchers decide to try their luck against Thrush, armed with rifles, against a warship. There's not a lot to analyze there, honestly. Needless to say, they get disposed of extremely quickly as well. And that's it. That was genuinely the entirety of the Zanzibari naval defense. What follows is roughly 30 straight minutes of over 500 high explosive shells continuously pounding the palace, until, finally, one single Zanzibari climbs up onto the roof to take down the rebel flag. And then the war ends. Yep, the entire war, the shortest war in recorded history, ends in just 38 minutes, with over 500 casualties on the Zanzibari side, and exactly 1 sailor injured on the British side, presumably by dropping a shell on his own foot. Ouch! In the end, the Anglo-Zanzibar War stands as both the shortest and one of the single most lopsided wars in our entire history. The aftermath. But what happened to Khalid? Well, he ran off. 5 minutes into the shelling, he simply left, with his rich buddies in tow, and sought refuge at the German embassy, leaving his 3,000 supporters behind to burn in the palace without him. Brother, not very cool. After the war, Khalid fled to German-controlled East Africa, where he continued to live a fairly comfortable life, right up until he got captured by Allied forces during World War I, who were busy liberating and, let's be honest, probably also quietly annexing German territory in Africa. He was then sent into exile on the exact same island the British once sent Napoleon to, which is either poetic or just really lazy real estate planning on Britain's part. From exile, Khalid reportedly wrote and sent dozens of personal letters to Winston Churchill, begging to be allowed to go home. The cigar man responded by sending him to Kenya instead, where he eventually died. Epic troll. Anyway, 20 minutes after the war ended, Hamoud bin Muhammad formally ascended to become sultan, and slavery was completely abolished in Zanzibar shortly after. which, in fairness to the British, was genuinely the entire point of this insane 38-minute detour in the first place. It just took a shockingly one-sided naval bombardment to get there. This has been the bizarre 38-minute war that caused way too many deaths for something this short.